Well, hey, everyone. That was just a little preview of the new intro or countdown timer I'm working on. So, no snafu there. But I hope everybody is having a great Saturday so far and a great weekend. I want to welcome you to the show. My name is Don Terrell, and thank you for tuning in to another great episode of The Color of Motion, where I always love to say stories come in all shades. And I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. This space that I love so much. You know the drill. Please say hello. Tell me where you're tuning in from so I can give you a big shout out before we kick off and get into the show. Just making sure everything is working properly. Looks like we are broadcasting on all the platforms, so that is always good. Make sure that you tune or connect with me, follow me. You can on all my social platforms here. Definitely want to hear from you, want to get you connected into the family and just engage with you. So make sure that like I said, tune in for sure. We want to welcome Mr. Ballistics Comics. This is going from Washington State. That's the first one from Washington State. We appreciate you tuning in for sure. Hope you enjoy the show. And I know that you are going to find this interesting if you are in any way connected with comics. So this is going to be a great show for sure. Like I told you, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. I always want to make sure that you get connected into the Facebook group. If you are one of those ones that loves to check out the show from Facebook, make sure you get connected. Hop on over, join the Color of Motion community. It's rapidly growing. We share industry news. A lot of the guests jump in, interact. But I definitely want to make it an engaging community for sure. That's where you'll be able to check out the show. Facebook.com/groups/ the color of motion. So make sure, like I said, if you're one of those ones that tends to enjoy watching the show from Facebook, that's where you can catch it there for sure. Like I said, we go live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. But I always highly encourage everybody to jump on over to the YouTube channel. Join my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Don Terrell. Subscribe, hit the bell notification. That's where you can check out all the other past great episodes for sure. But definitely want to make that also an engaging place. Going to be putting up a lot more content, not just the show, but a lot of tutorials, reviews, things like that. So definitely looking to grow the channel for sure. Like I said, and I'm always telling you, we got a lot of great things planned for the show in the works that we're trying to get together. The website, we're looking to have that up by the end of the year. Also looking to create some swag items so that we can give our guests some swag bags for being guests on the show, but also for you as well, where we're going to be doing giveaways, contests, where you're going to be able to purchase it on there as well. But we definitely got a lot of great things planned. Hopefully, and I don't know if maybe some of you have started to see some of the Instagram little shorts. I've been doing some reels and shorts before the show just to kind of connect with everybody. So that is another big thing planned. Like I said, we got working on great sponsors for this show. If you want to support the show, we got I always love coffee, so you can buy me coffee. I'll be throwing that up as well. But we also have a tip jar set up so that you can support the show, help me to continue to keep it going for sure. Um, Cash App, you can drop whatever you are so inclined. Scan the barcode, uh, $ Don Terrell 65. Like I said, definitely would appreciate your support. And if you do, we are, will be giving you a shout out for sure. We want to make sure that we, like I said, highlight the people that really do support the show and help me to continue with it going on. So, your name could be here as well. So, really been looking forward to this episode for a while. Looking forward to sitting down with my friend and really diving into some interesting things that's going on with him for sure. What else is there that I may be forgetting? Again, like I said, make sure you engage with the show and everything that's going on because I definitely want you to be a part of the family for sure. So, with that, I think I got all the little housekeeping and everything out the way. So, I'm excited to dive into this interview. My next guest and friend is the founder and CEO of Raster Technologies and TitaniumComics and was born and raised in the East Bay of San Francisco. Rastr was created to add more value to the hard work independent comic publishers perform and is developing a software ecosystem specifically with comic creators in mind. So, if you are, like I said, one of those cartoon comic buffs, this is the episode for you. Having experience and some mild success in the independent comic publishing market, TitaniumComics Facebook following swelled to over 50,000 in the first 6 months after launch. The company was featured in several comic media articles and partnered on an innovative technology project from Ascribe and Leah Moore's electronics platform. Later, that business would morph into Rastr, which acts to fulfill his goal of expressing the hidden financial and social values in independent comic media products. As he works with these publishers from around the world, his vision is to transform the industry from the traditional expensive brick and mortar model to an all-inclusive producer to consumer digital ecosystem. In short, his goal is to create a new global comic book industry that exists primarily online. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Mr. Dion Wilson. Mr. Dion, you are muted. If you can unmute yourself. There we go. All right. Mr. Dion, how's it going, sir? Oh, it looks like he may be frozen. Dion, if you can hear me, you might be frozen there. Can you hear me? We see you, but it looks like you're frozen. I wish there was a chat there with you. Hopefully you can hear me, Dion. Because we are stuck here. So I'm not sure if you may need to. I do have. Hopefully, he's monitoring the LinkedIn channel. I'm gonna type him and let him know he's frozen. Okay. He may need to log off and log back in. Always, like I said, yep, he logged off, and I'm guessing he's gonna log back in. So let me switch back to solo mode here until he logs back in. And here he is. Let's make sure. All right. Okay. And here he is, Mr. Dion.
Okay.
All right. We
Hey,
have
thank
you
you so
now.
much, Don, for having me.
Oh, no
Something
problem.
happened there when you were doing your last part of your introduction, and it really slowed down. I could hear you. You know, I could hear everything, but it just came through kind of crazy.
All
So,
right. Well, we are
um,
back and you are back. So super
yeah,
excited to have you on, Dion. And like I
thank you.
said, been waiting for a while to really sit down, talk to you more about Multiverse, Titanium Comics, and all that you're doing
Yeah,
for the independent comic creator for sure.
sure, absolutely.
So just to kind of start out a little, kind of tell us a little more of just the pre all this growing up. I mean,
Oh,
what did you think you were going, or what did you want to do as you were kind of a kid and growing up? I mean, was comics or that any type of way in your thinking as far as what you thought you might want to be doing, or were you kind of off on a different path?
no, actually, it's really unique. Well, I guess it depends on who you ask. I think there's similar stories around. Comics were in my family before I was, so I grew up and the comics were there, the shows were there, and it was enjoyable. I had a great time, 70s through the 80s, with the toys, the shows, the movies, the comics, and I recall a classmate that could, excuse me, that was a really great artist, and I took that back home to my mom, who, she was she's been very supportive of me, and she was supportive even then. And I took it back to her and said, "Wow, we've got this guy in our class, and he can just draw. He was amazing." And I think that was second or third grade, something like that.
Wow.
And I said I wanted to draw, and so she encouraged me to do so. I said, "I can't draw like that. I can't do that." And she said, "Yes, you can, And I started on a path of illustrating, and I did that up through high school. In my last years of high school, I was bit by the business bug, and it transformed me from wanting to illustrate to go into business. And from there, I set out, excuse me, from there, I set out and I went into business for myself. And interestingly enough, at a certain point, it came back to comics. It came back to pop culture. I noticed there was a huge change in the market. I wanted to monitor the market for a bit. And once I monitored it and felt comfortable and felt that I had something to offer, that's when I jumped in. And that was about 2010. So that was a long time from
Yeah.
the 90s being in high school, being bit by business. And my life from that point up to comics, well, that's a story for another time.
We'll
But
have you back on for that one for sure. And I'm curious because As you know, like I said, obviously, you know,
Mhm.
the comic books, kind of the hard kind of, physical comic books has been a big
Right,
thing. Um,
right.
and do you feel like um, what you're doing, and with the digital age coming in and people able to get digital comic, that people still kind of tend to, I mean, do you think that's going to go anywhere, or do you feel like people in the comic, really diehard comic book fans, are really going to, they want the hardcover. They want something physical that, like I said, they can flip through and just look at and just hold, that type of thing. The DC Marvel comics, that was almost as exciting as reading the comics when you got it
Sure.
and was just
Yeah,
looking
just
at the
having it. Yeah,
cover and just opened it up and could
yeah,
smell the new print and everything. So do you feel like
absolutely.
that's going to be kind of the challenge of moving from digital, the hard copy, and making it?
So you're asking me a question that I feel very comfortable answering, and this answer is going to get under the skin of a lot of American creators in particular.
Yeah,
But we need to see the market in a few different ways. So here at home domestically, um, a lot of your collectors, people who have a more tactile relationship with the physical product, will try to continue that as long as possible. But that is a small segment of the comic consuming environment globally. So when we look globally at what's happening, the use of mobile apps and mobile devices in general has multiplied tremendously. There are a number of studies out which shows the multiplication factor, and the leading countries are not first world countries; they are third world countries with populations in the billions.
yeah,
And so that ability to deliver content of all types on a mobile device is far more uh, common than getting physical merchandise. Physical merchandise has to go through a lot of hoops just to get our comics into another country. If we were to think in terms of being an independent creator, you've got to go through a lot of hoops. Um, for the larger companies, they may have a studio and publishing group already in a foreign nation. And so that's going to make it a lot easier for distribution. But the cost compared to how most of us do it here today
yeah,
is, you know, is a big difference.
yeah, yeah,
So the idea of the tangible product, I believe in the future, and this is where it's going to irritate guys and girls out there, it's going to become, as it is, it's going to become more of a novelty. It's not going to continue to be something that the mass consumers of even the American and Western markets of comics continue to do regularly. Okay. That is something that we need to face because technology and software technology in particular, platforms, apps, blockchain, you name it,
yeah,
these things are changing how we interact with one another, with products, with companies, um, even for ourselves, with ourselves.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
it's changing, and it's there, but I think it's more of Western society having more of a realization of that, and realizing that we make up a very small percentage of the world and the world consumption. And so, yeah, that's
I'm
a
pretty
long,
sure that's
long
going to
answer.
be it. Well, have you found that to be in? Well, before I ask that question, let's jump back a
Sure,
little further, and I'll let you kind of unpack what the multiverse is,
sure,
and just exactly how that you're looking to position to help indie comics. So, what
sure.
is the multiverse?
So the multiverse actually um, is it originally started based on the idea that Raster had already decided, based on the years of data that we had collected that we wanted to create software applications for comic creators, independent comic creators, um, and that those software products would help them in their journey to monetizing, collaborating, and also growing, brand recognition.
Yeah.
The multiverse came into play because we knew that we wanted to have a community around that software. We knew that we would need to have one for educational purposes, and also to, for its own brand recognition to really spread the word. So multiverse became a ecosystem in a sense. It became the brand idea of how we would actually tie these individual software products together as a suite, and each one having unique use cases, but being tied together by some of the technologies as well as some of the gamification features. Um, Moving forward, we said, okay, we can create a cloud environment, tie it all together. We can create with blockchain a token economy around it, where the use of that, uh, the use of those tools would allow users to have rewards and incentives. They would have essentially, without offending the federal government or Federal Reserve, they'd have their own currency. They'd have their own means of exchange, um, where it would, really facilitate everything that's already occurring and some things that haven't been happening. And those are things that are, in that digital space. So multiverse was really a way for us to package it all together and really make the offering the most valuable, as opposed to having a technology here and a technology over there,
Yeah.
and trying to get people to understand, you know, how are these related? Why should we use them? So we're really excited about how we've put this environment together and what we're building it to become. We're really excited about
Awesome, awesome. And we're gonna,
that.
like I said, everyone, we're gonna show a little of the platform and the back end in a
Yeah.
minute. But for you, what's been kind of the biggest challenge bringing this to
Yeah.
fruition?
Okay. Excuse me. Excuse me. So the largest challenge is one that I think we all face, and that is um, galvanizing the right team initially. And I say initially, but of course, people come and go,
Yeah,
and so as they do, you have to bring on new people who definitely see that vision. And when I say galvanizing people, getting your team together, which I'm really big on, um, they have to share the vision. It's very
yeah,
important that they share the vision. Now, seeing the vision is one thing, but I could go into the philosophy of sharing the vision, and that's people saying, having personal and being self-determined to say, I'm going to work with you so that we both achieve this end.
yeah,
And I'm actually excited with the team we have today. I'm excited about those guys. Growing up, being a huge fan of the X-Men, teams are my thing. And knowing that you have people with different skill sets, different backgrounds, who wouldn't know you, and the common denominator is that vision. And so we all come together, excuse me, we all come together and we work to carry that out
yeah,
and to see those unique skills employed in that process. So the biggest challenge has been putting together a team, keeping that team cohesive, and driving forward. There are several challenges to, I don't refer to us as a startup anymore.
yeah,
I think that expires after 3 years.
yeah,
We are a scale up.
yeah. yeah, yeah.
We're essentially skilled.
And like I said, for all you comic creators and artists out there, I would love for you to jump on, give us, your feedback, your thoughts on it as we go through this interview. Mr. Raul, I appreciate you tuning in. Uh, that is true commitment and teaming to achieve a vision for sure. Yeah, main ingredient for us to making something happen. Definitely. And I'm curious, um, not only, I understand kind of the technical, challenges and just team wise
Yeah.
and bringing teams together and people together to facilitate this. But I'm curious what your kind of initial feedback from comic creators, the independent comic creators that are going to be on the platform and monetizing it. Because, like you said, in this society, we're pretty much used to the hardcover kind of comics and kind of ingesting comics from that kind of perspective. Have you found that that's been another challenge, kind of ex- kind of showing this and explaining this as a viable way for independent comics to creators to get their comics out there?
Well, definitely, because this is a new model. It's a brand new model. No one has been concerned. No one has stepped forward with anything to support these creators. And this model also has to be understood that it doesn't sell your comic books.
Yeah,
The Hero Ledger, if we're speaking specifically about Hero Ledger is there to monetize those individual parts that go into a comic book that you've got sitting on the shelf, that you've moved on to something else, or you're more focused on something else. Well, those things aren't making you money. And so what we said is that Hero Ledger could really be the Alibaba or the
mm-hmm.
Envato market
Yeah,
for the comic book industry. People are used to these type of digital platforms, just not for comics
yeah, yeah.
or comic related assets.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha. So it works
excuse
in
me.
conjunction with, say, independent, or works in tandem with, say, an independent marketing it on their own, web platform or website and other. So it's just something else that you can use to help monetize all your content or your comic book
Sure.
content.
Sure. Let's say that you are working on a comic and you don't have the characters. Now, some people might say, well, how can you work on a comic and not have characters? Well, it depends on where you are in the production process.
Yeah.
You may need more characters. You may feel that you need to adjust the characters that you have by number or by, some other characteristic. This app is structured so that you can go in and find what you need, purchase it or license it, and use it in your production. So, very similar to a graphic designer buying After Effects from the Envato market.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but this is, again, it's tied to comics. If you've never done a comic book before and you say, hey, I want to put my own comic book together, this is a way for you to kind of abbreviate the process if you're not going to, hire certain types of artists or artists to be involved at certain points. You can have the characters ready. You can buy the scripts and you can then have your creators to take those things and mash them up and put your comic book out there. So this is the first of several applications that we're developing. But it is the brand ambassador, if you will, of what we're doing to show that creators actually have more value financially than they realize.
Yeah.
And a lot of that value has not been achieved because as they work on something, they move to something else, and then they move to something else, and they leave behind what's half done or what's done and not used. we say, let's upcycle that. Let's put that into an application that will absolutely get that work shown and utilized by people who
May
maybe they
want to
don't have the
use it.
time.
Yeah, like you said, may want to
Exactly.
use it or
Yeah.
license it from you to use. And let's
Absolutely.
jump over and take a quick look at, like I said, I got some screenshots and a little short video of the platform and
Yes.
dive a little more into it for sure. Like I said, it looks like a very and you can kind of maybe talk a little bit about each
Sure.
one. I'm guessing this shows you geographically, where you're at and who's purchasing what and all of that.
Yes. Very good. One of the things that is very important for growth is information. And we believe in the use of data. Data is a very important part of our business model. And we know it's a very important part of comic creators' business model, even if they may not realize they're
Yeah,
dealing with data. And what we wanted to do, in as less a boring way as possible, provide them the insights that social media insights won't give them. You see, social media insights will give them the sentiment if people are properly commenting when they ask a question or in general. But to tell someone, wow, that's really great art, or wow, it's a great story, doesn't really speak to sales.
yeah.
It doesn't speak to sales. And so what this data does, what this page, my data, it shows what's happening with your money. It's showing what's happening with your sales in one country to the next, from $1 to the next.
So really dives into the analytics of what's going on with your product and your everything
Absolutely.
that you're putting on there. Like I said, the
Absolutely.
obviously this looks like a profile section of
Yes.
the page, and definitely
Yes.
looks like a slick application. How long?
Thank you.
I mean, I know apps, especially the in-depth app that has a lot of moving parts to it. You
Mhm.
know, what lengthwise, time-wise, what would you say has been the production, production schedule, and as far as how long it's taken you to get to this point?
Well, I don't know if we want to embarrass ourselves here, but to really put it plainly, to really create. Okay, so let me say this in defense of the realm. Um, we got two blockchain applications created in a span of 10 months. Okay. There were two MVPs created, one that we don't show the public. And it's not Hero Ledger. It is another application within this, system. The public will see it when it's time. But Hero Ledger, again, is that first brand ambassador. And so we were fortunate to work with some developers, software developers, and shout out to Satya Dinesh and also to Mayor Bahaguna for helping us along the way. We were fortunate to work with these two gentlemen and others, of course,
Yeah.
but them in particular to really, be ride or die with us and help us to craft this vision that we have. And so, because of the labor that they put in and the time, we can estimate initially for the MVPs for that to be about 9 to 10 months.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Like I said,
Planning, maybe another 3 months, but
and just
yeah,
showing just a little some quick previews of the app. And like I said,
sure.
after this, I'm going to show you everybody a quick little video of the app in process. Um, but for sure, it looks like, and I really like this section here, which really shows off the different
The
works and
store.
everything. The store, I'm a
Yeah,
graphics person, so
the store is 99 or 90%, is 90% of everything. Actually, if you be too kind to go back to the last slide. And there's a reason why I'd like to go back to that graphic.
Sure.
So
This
we
this one?
utilize block. Yes, that
Okay.
is it, where it showed Hero Ledger Block Explorer. So we utilize blockchain technology. And that word and those words that are surrounding that environment is thrown around so much. Even we throw them around.
Yeah.
However, you can't see a blockchain. You can't see it function. And the best thing that you can do is to understand when blocks are added to that database based on what's called a block explorer. And that's a general term for a user interface or front end that any of us would go to and look at a transaction by its number, by a date timestamp, and maybe even the size, as much information as contained about that transaction, that's going to be on that line. So what you're looking at is our initial block explorer. So the transactions that happen within Hero Ledger are added to blocks, and those blocks are added to Comic Chain, which we do have. We were fortunate enough to have that built this year. So this is the way to see the blockchain, because other than that, you can't really see it. You can only talk about it. I mean, we could show people in the back end code, but who's going to look at that and know what it
I know
is?
I'm
And
not.
who's going to care? Right. Who's going to care? So essentially, this is the way to do that. This is our way of doing that, to show you, hey, there's a blockchain here, and it is recording what you're doing. And that the page previously is really great. It's a really great flow that we're going through here, because that shows how we give the data back to the users. We give them their information back.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not the profile page, but the
The
my
one.
data page, which was, I guess, the first one. Yeah. So, we give the data back. You're going to be doing transactions. You're not necessarily going to be thinking about the data at that moment, but you're going to be able to come back to it. And our way of guaranteeing your transaction, your use of the system, your ownership of those illustration and text items is our blockchain. And you're going to be able to see and verify. Others are going to be able to see and verify. And
Gotcha.
so, that's very important in
Awesome.
where we're going as a global community.
Awesome, awesome. And we're gonna take a quick little look. This is just a little sped up video of the showing the app in progress. So let's check it out. Obviously, a very, very slick app for sure. Everybody, thank you again for tuning in, and we're joining us. We're having a great conversation with my friend and guest, Mr. Dion Wilson,
Thank
founder
you.
and vision source for Raster. Titanium Comics and the Multiverse, talking about his new, well, relatively new platform that's coming out.
Mhm.
That he's been in the works for a while. He's been working on it for sure, but definitely something that hasn't been in the mainstream yet, and getting ready to hit the scene for sure. Mr. Ballistic Comics, the vision is the model of today and the future, for sure. And I think you made a great point in the fact that
Mhm.
that seemed, I mean, technology is moving forward so fast, and we're consuming content in such a different way now
Sure,
than we were before.
sure.
I'm curious. Also, I mean, obviously, you're really big on helping the independent comic, but how do you feel like that is going to fit or toward alongside with, obviously the big dogs in the market, DC Comics and Marvel? Do you feel like, once they get a whiff of this, that it's going to be okay? This is maybe something that we might need to start thinking about, integrating with our comics and the comic creators that we got coming in. Oh, we might have froze.
So
Uh,
I'm not sure if you can you hear me okay
yes,
there?
we got you back there. You,
Uh-oh.
you
Can
froze
you
a
hear
little
me?
there. Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh wow.
Did you hear my
Let's
Did you
see.
hear my
Okay,
question?
yeah, I think I'm coming through. Yes.
Okay.
I definitely got your question. It's a little slow still, but something's happening there.
Yeah.
But um, excuse me. Essentially, well, first you ask a very relevant question. Uh, the uh, the way that we've seen the traditional markets function, we kind of look up to some top publishers, and well, not kind of look up to, we do. We all
Yeah.
look up to them. We all kind of
I mean, everybody's growing up
the
on
ecosystem
Disney, or
functions around
yeah,
them,
we've grown up on, like you
and
said,
they
on
have
that
hundreds of
ecosystem.
thousands of characters for sure. They have hundreds of thousands of characters. Uh, each 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 publisher, and specifically Marvel and DC. Uh, the tomorrow is not an environment where there's a big two. I think of any industry. In fact, technologies are creating software applications, or I should say, companies are creating software applications that are allowing individuals and groups of individuals to function very much like a 500-man company. And that's significant. It's significant what the individual can do with that many tools and that much flexibility in hand. Um, we feel that tomorrow's market is one where there's a lot more equilibrium in brand recognition, brand success, okay? That it's not determined by if you are one of the big two, or I say big six,
Yeah.
let's just say, it's not determined by that. It's not determined if you worked for them. It's really determined by your use of the software tools that are created either directly for you, or that you're able to create or find and integrate into your offering, into what you're doing, into your company. And that's what's going to make the difference. And there's such a community of sharing where a lot of creators today, younger creators in particular, and especially those on spend more time on social media, they're not they don't see competition the same way. So they're willing to share the tools that they have. And so you have brands that elevate together as opposed to one or the other because one has, if you will, the secret sauce.
Yeah.
So, and the other part to this, the other most important part to all of this is the tremendous amount of intellectual property that is created collectively from these individuals and groups of individuals every year. We've said this number, it's a true number, it is a measurement that we have taken, and we are literally talking about 700 million to 1 billion individual intellectual property items that are created every year. It's taken the brands that we admire. I was breaking up there. Could you hear me there,
Yeah,
Darren?
we can
Don?
hear you. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, great. It's taken the brands that we've admired over these years, 80 years to develop 200,000 plus characters. Well, for one company, that's significant and that cannot be ignored. That should not be ignored. But one of the things that we don't ignore, we just don't know,
Yeah.
is when you take the over 10,000 plus smaller brands and individual creators, they're creating significantly larger numbers of assets every year. They're creating more comics, more characters, but there's no proper channel for access. There's no proper channel for discovery. And that's where the multiverse comes in. That's where our software applications come in.
Got you. Got you.
And
Got you.
and there's going to be, excuse me, be um, sorry, there's going to be um, more discovery because of these technologies, more collaboration because of these technologies, an ease of access to other markets because of these technologies. And when you have something like that, that competes and it turns the traditional model on its head, where you're no longer looking at Marvel and DC for the next big character or even the next big character's movie.
Yeah.
You're now looking in the largest possible pond of creators. And that's significant. I know I kind of, you know, talk about it in the future, but I want creators to understand that future is being created with or without Raster or you,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's a universal concept. It's not specific to comics. It's just that no one that's thinking about it is thinking specifically about comics. And that's my passion. My passion, my team's passion is to bring it to comics and to shape and form it around comics. And I say comics, I'm talking about the brands, I'm talking about the creators, individuals, and the teams.
Yeah.
So, that's the difference. The model will be flipped on its head, where larger creators will definitely represent, again, that novelty, that what we grew up on, that nostalgia. And the broadest range of creators will be the ones that consumers will look to for their everyday consumption. Guaranteed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always like to say, like I said, this is such
Mhm.
a interesting time because technology is moving at such a rapid pace, and like you said, how we consume
Yes.
content, how we get content out there. Do you? How are you going? Because I've had the opportunity, obviously, with the show, connecting with a lot of independent comic creators. How are you kind of approaching them and kind of presenting this to them as an alternative or an option that it's something that they should be looking at and looking towards?
Well, the first thing we do, and we do talk to a lot of creators. I talk to a lot My new partner, Paul Berry, speaks to a lot of creators, and then we talk to a lot together. Um, we first learn about them. We have a lot to say about the industry, how it's going to change, what kind of technology we have, what we want to do with it. We see how it's usable for every group, but we don't start our conversation there. We start our conversation with, where are you as a creator? What's your mindset? What, how prepared are you just in your business model? And from there, we then begin to talk about how these technologies will assist them in bringing up their business, their teams, their consumer base.
So, as a consensus, where do you usually where do they usually fall when you're talking to the comic creators in regards to their business model? Where do most of them kind of you know fall independent wise?
Well, you have a fair spectrum. You have a lot of creators who are really trying to work their way around crowdfunding. I've
Hmm.
seen that a little too much. There seems to be too much reliance on crowdfunding, those systems. We see a few creators who have figured it out and publish and sell, but they don't have the international exposure. Then we have a few in the middle that are still trying to put together, excuse me, put together teams. They're trying to um, really find their equilibrium as a creator and as a business, how they should go about doing anything pertaining to putting their comic together and pushing it out. So there's a broad spectrum of the types of creators we come across. And what why that even happens is because we see a product of some sort. We see a logo, we see their name. I mean, excuse me, we see their comic, and when we see these things, we follow up and say, hey, I see you're into comics. Tell us more about your business model. Well, what are you doing? What are your needs? And that's where we go from there.
Gotcha, gotcha, for sure.
Mhm.
And to that point, is like because social media is such a big thing, is that a part of the going to be part of the aspect of the platform, being able to utilize and push your content out and share it out on various social
Sure,
platforms?
sure. It's necessary. We don't see ourselves replacing social media. We can't. Um, our focus is on production, monetization, brand recognition, um, and collaboration. Uh, Social is a big beast in not just the American social media companies, but I know from the personal experience, um, social media in other countries is huge.
Yeah.
And so we would never try to interfere with that. We work with that. Not that you're saying we would interfere, but
No,
I
I
just
meant
want to
as
point
far
out.
as integrating that into, say, the platform that will allow you or allow the content creator, hey, I've got these different items or entities that are available for any content, to monetize. I'm sorry.
we
Go ahead.
we so right, we do have a process for working with social media that exists. We also have a process for including a form of social media within our ecosystem itself. And I what I to my point before is that you know we can't be all things to all people,
Yeah.
and there are just areas that we won't try to dominate in both. We may try to dominate in comics, but not in social media. we definitely see that their social media is a really important point for not just sales, but engagement, and not just engagement with the customer, but engagement with other brands, where you can partner, engagement with potential team members, where you're partnering on a project, on a comic,
Yeah.
or an animated film or indie game.
Yeah.
So there are, and then there are data points there too. So there's a lot of good things there that we feel that we can pull from, and that we can have programs that interface with to assist in the environment that we're in too. So
Gotcha.
it's definitely part of our strategy.
Gotcha. Again, for everybody that's just jumping on, I'm having a great conversation with Mr. Dion Wilson with the Multiverse Platform and Titanium Comics. Where I mean, obviously, your vision for technology is really going to push this forward. But is that where you feel like comics are going to go? Um, Hard, like I said, here we're used to the hardcover. Do you feel like that's just it's gonna be there, but it's gonna be kind of a novelty thing? Because you are starting to see web comics and things like that now on online in some spaces.
Yeah, web comics have actually been around a long time. Matter of fact, web comics have probably been around since the late 90s. What I would say is that the vision that we created a 25-year plan around it. So we don't see this space, uh, technology coming and going. Technology is not a fad,
Yeah,
okay? It is something that helps us all to become more efficient at something else. And then that's not going anywhere. So we saw where this market is going. And I smile because, I can't get into that. What I can tell you is that areas like quantum computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, blockchain, what is now Web 3.0, which will be 4 and 5.0, these technologies are going to drive, as they are now, they're going to accelerate and drive all economies, all industries, I would say strongly within the next 10 years. And beyond that point, these technologies are going to become so ubiquitous, so readily available to 5-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and easier to use, okay, that, you know, grandmas will be walking across the street creating holograms. I mean,
yeah,
or projecting them, I should
yeah,
say, projecting the program code for hologram. Now, we know that those things take time. And I know that particular use of the technology is going to take a lot of time. But this industry is changing. Mark Andreessen said it best: software is eating up the world, it's eating the world. And so, if we think that it's going to bypass the comic book industry, we're mistaken,
yeah,
because the huge business component within this industry demands efficiency.
yeah.
So someone's going to use it. And right now, I can tell you that the larger companies don't quite know how to use these technologies, because they're because of their focus. It really has a lot to do with their focus.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think
they have a different focus.
no, and I think like you were saying, technology is just.
Mhm.
I mean, it's something that you're not going to stop, and you tend to just adopt it. I mean, you could say the same thing about animation. When they move
Right.
from traditional animation and computer animation came in. It was just it didn't replace it, but it was just a new way of doing things and really presenting something. So it's something that you're not going to be able to stop, but it just morphs into different things for sure. So for you, I mean, to this point, what's been in putting this all together? What's been the biggest learning experience and or thing that you've kind of learned throughout this whole process so far?
Wow. I know they always say, when someone asks you a question on one of these shows, never say great question or good question, but
Well, I
you've
like to
asked some
drop.
really good questions. You asked some really good questions. That's why I'm smiling, because these are things we've thought about. We've had time to think. We've had data to think with, and we've had good people to, have this conversation go back and forth with.
Yeah.
Um, you know, um, we we see the market. Um, we see the market. When I think about that, we see the market. I think the best way that a business could, and we think that creators would do well to just kind of lift their heads up a little bit and look around outside of the excuse me, outside of to look around outside of their um, immediate environment. Uh, the the difficulties, or I should say, the issues that we see, I want to say this kindly, and I don't know if this would be even be understood, but it's an observation, and if it doesn't apply, that's fine. But there are a number of creators. They are not necessarily market entrants. In fact, they've been creating comics for some time or some variation within comics, right? And they definitely can tell you about the hardships of the industry, the difficulties in becoming monetized and getting their comic, whether they want it to be published by a large company or just publish it themselves. They understand fully the difficulties. But for some reason, some of them really refuse to do something new. It's almost like, okay, this doesn't work, but I don't want to do anything else. Well, we're not telling you, and I don't think anyone is saying give up creating comics or pursuing this as a profession or as a way of life. What we are saying is do better. We're saying that, hey, the world is changing. It's changing the model that you are trying to work within. Just take a look at it. If you want an advantage, there are advantages to get, and you have to adjust to how you can get those advantages.
Gotcha.
And so that's
Gotcha.
what we're seeing.
Well,
Yeah.
and kind of to kind of circle back to my question, you
Mhm.
personally though putting this all together and kind of trying to see this to fruition, what's been kind of the biggest learning experience for you personally doing this and kind of working on this?
um, Biggest learning experience for me. Hmm. Uh, okay. So um, there is a difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur. That word is thrown around like blockchain and everything else. There's probably a million TED Talks and books being written about how to be an entrepreneur, come to this school. You cannot learn how to be an entrepreneur. You are likely born one. It's like, um, you know, it's, I think it's a lot more nature than it is nurture. Now, what you can be if you're not an entrepreneur, you can definitely be a great business owner. You see, the thing that most people won't tell you because they need that 15 minutes of fame on TED Talk. They won't tell you you can still be great at what you do and not have that title. Now, you asked, what was the biggest lesson? I could have said, how to hire a software developer and all those different things, but no, no, that's not the biggest lessons. When you are a company with a model and you're planning to shift the paradigm, you're alone.
Yeah.
You don't have the same support financially, the same support team wise, resource wise, even because the model is unique, is different, and there hasn't been a construct for it. Okay. And that puts you in a really odd place when you try to describe to people what you want to do and how you want to do it.
Yeah.
That's where you see the difference between the visionaries and the people who are just waiting for somebody to succeed. The visionaries say, we're going to go forward with this regardless. People that's waiting for someone else to do it and fail to succeed base their situation off of what happens, to others. And so the business here is a unique one. We propose a set of strategies. We propose a set of tools that no one has introduced, or thought to introduce. We've had people copy our language, claim to do this, but they don't do this. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to convince even a software developer sometimes to, when you create, we need you to create for this type of model. And they may say, wait a minute, I'm not used to that model. Why don't we just use Amazon? And you're
Yeah.
like, no. So with all due respect, the lesson here is one of teams. I think the lesson really comes from comic books. I think it's the same lesson. I think it's lessons,
Yeah.
which are teams, the importance of teams, the importance of working together and achieving a goal, never giving up, thinking outside the box, using science. That's a huge thing, at
Yeah.
least with the comics I used to read. Science was big.
Yeah.
People didn't say I hate, the characters never said I hate science, I hate math. They were very learned in those areas. That's why they could do what they do. And there's science to business. There are formulas, even for the small guy. So that's been one of the biggest lessons is, you know, who are we in this? Is Dion Wilson a business owner? Sure he is, but he's an entrepreneur first. Yes, I definitely uh, loved illustrating growing up and wanted to pursue that. But I was also trying to sell things. I was also trying to sell the things that I animate. I was putting together my own version of comic books. I was trying to do all kinds of things in that way. So business is in my blood and it's not there for everyone. And you can't have a blood transfusion when it comes to business. You can learn business and be really good at it, but um, it's not necessarily going to make you an entrepreneur in that way. So, the lesson has been about uh, succeeding as a team and business and understanding that um, it doesn't happen as quickly or the way that the TED Talks, the books, or
Yeah.
YouTube says it does.
Yeah.
And you have to be strong enough to ride the wave.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
be strong. Yeah,
That is true.
yeah,
That is true. Um,
yeah.
and this may be kind of a broad question, or it
Mm,
may be kind of a vague question, but moving
okay.
forward, what is your kind of goal and true hope for the
Mm.
multiverse, and just your ideology of how we're going to consume comics and how the comic creator is going to be able to use this? What's your kind of vision for moving forward?
So in the near future, the goal is to have a much larger global audience and participation within multiverse. That more creators come forward and recognize the importance of technology in general
Hmm.
and its use in what they are creating, as well as in how they partner with one another and how they talk to their consumers, how they engage them. That's very important to us. It's definitely an area we're working towards. We're working towards a service model that will really bring a lot of these uh, processes together so that they can come through us and come through our partner brands and experience things that they would have a more difficult time getting here or there.
Yeah.
So, when you think about the team, you got to produce the comic, but then you got to go on Don's show, but then
Yeah.
you got to advertise and you got to, tweet and all these things. We're looking at a model that brings a lot of uh, those requirements together as a package where it is affordable because we understand what costs they deal with, and it is excuse me, it is user friendly. The people who are involved in servicing and partnering with them are are interested, genuinely interested in their success. That's very important too, because you could have a service provider and they don't really care as long as they get paid.
Yeah.
And I don't like that model. That's okay for some. It's not really good for me. I like to stand behind what I'm doing. I like to stand in front of it. I like to stand on the sides of it. Okay. And so we want these creators to have a service that really hits the major points that we speak about, that they talk about, which are the same. We just may say them in a more, we may use more business words for it, but it's the same stuff. And it's getting them out there. It's you know 5 steps further than if they just continue to spin their wheels. We
Yeah.
don't want them out there just churning and burning comics, thinking that if I can just sell another comic, if I can just do another crowdfunding sale, then I'll make it. That is not the way forward. That is not how companies grow at all, you know. So we want to create some services. So that's the near future. The future, we see some very advanced software tools that we are working on. We've already started working on. We don't want to go too far with that, but
Yeah.
we've started working on, and we see them being integrated into the full experience, the supply chain, the production, and the consumption of the comic and other entertainment media.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked a little bit about it earlier,
Mhm.
but do you feel like um, because this is going to be a global thing. Do you feel
Mhm.
like it'll be more receptive uh, outside of the U.S. And a
Mhm.
harder thing to kind of sell to the U.S. than it would be to other countries and other creators in countries?
Good question. I've thought about that a lot, and the jury's still out on it. I don't know for a fact. We're still looking at that. We're looking at which markets are more receptive, and it's it varies. It really varies.
Yeah,
We're still
because
learning things.
like you
Yeah,
were saying, I think most content creators, especially the independent comic, artists that I've come across, interviewed, talked to, like you were saying, are used to that model of, okay, if I'm gonna publish it myself, then Kickstarter, getting the
sure,
Kickstarter
sure.
campaign, and we're kind of used to this kind of model of getting our content and comics out there.
Right, right. You know, it, what I would say what applications, what platforms are available make a huge difference in how you see yourself and how you see the ability to handle. I mean, I should say the ability for consumers to uh, really consume your product. Um, as we educate creators more, they're going to realize that it's a much bigger world out there, that there are many more tools, and that they can with some ease move to thinking other thoughts about what they're doing. I think there's a level of scarcity in the mentality of creators right now where uh, it can kind of force you to become myopic. It can force you to just stay in one area. And when you don't feel that you have the support of good service providers, you might even double down on those areas and really ignore other options. And so we have an education campaign, and we're working on that. We're really working to help these guys and girls understand what options they have. And I think that's going to broaden their perspective a lot more and kind of take a bit of the weight off the shoulders, because that's what those tools are there to do. It's they're there to actually function as people. That's really what they do. And if they will allow themselves that opportunity to even test it, they're going to see some good results.
Yeah,
They're not going to get rich overnight. None of us do.
yeah,
None of us.
no,
But what they're going to begin to see are some results. They're going to be able to glean some information that they're going to be able to take back to their teams or just kind of work with on their own if they're individual, and then make some new decisions that otherwise they wouldn't be able to do.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Again, we've been having a great talk with Mr. Dion Wilson about his exciting platform, the Multiverse, that's really designed to help the independent comic creator and really get their comics and content out into the world in a lot more efficient and better way. And like I said, obviously, I tend to agree with you in the fact that as content creators, we're going to have to learn how to leverage the new technology that is coming, regardless of whether we, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
create anything or not. It's just we
Right.
have to learn to use and leverage all the kind of technology that is just so rapidly becoming available. Like I said, I'm a big lover of technology, even though I'm old school people. I do love technology and just the new ways in which you can use it, whether it's augmented reality, comic books, like I said, web AR. Just there's so many different ways and new things to get your content and comics and cartoons out there in a much more engaging and impactful way. The world's getting smaller and smaller each and
Yeah.
every day,
Yes.
and it's getting to be such a global world. I'm just so excited, not just
Yeah.
from the content creators that I've connected with in this country, but just the ability of being able to connect with so many great content creators, comic creators, writers outside of the country now that are starting to
Yeah.
put their content out there. And I
Yeah.
feel like this is just going to be another great way for content creators, comic creators, and the independent artists to get their work out there for sure.
Sure. One thing I want to say about that is, a lot of times when we think of technology, we think of it from the consumption side, and our focus is really on the producer side. So that's a similar but different model because we um, we said the consumers have as much advantage as the larger companies that are out there. The smaller publishers don't have the same advantage. And so what we wanted to do was to create an advantage for the smaller creators. The consumers and the larger creators have a similar advantage, and we feel that the smaller creators don't have that advantage. So that's what we wanted to do. Excuse me, just 1 second, Don. I apologize. One moment. Let me please apologize.
Guys, I hope you've been enjoying this conversation so far. And, in a minute, we're going to throw up his Dion's contact information where you can get in touch with them. I really enjoy and appreciate everybody that's been tuning in. I hope all the independent creators, comic book artists out there, um, are tuning in, will tune in, because I really would love to hear your feedback on it, get, what your thoughts on it are. Like I said, I know in this kind of, and I guess I'm kind of like that too. I love hard copy, comic books. But I also understand that there are other alternatives of consuming comic books, whether it's digitally online. I think most comic creators are kind of creating digital versions of their comics for people, obviously, to download and consume, for sure. So this is, I think, it's I don't see it as something that's just going to completely replace, but as a supplement and just another avenue for independent comic book artists and creators to use and utilize, for sure. Miss, I'm Mr. Mayor. Well, and please forgive me. I don't mean to you know uh, butcher your name, but I'm gonna try and say it like Mr. Mayor Bahuguna. I'm gonna pronounce it really slowly. Cool stuff. I appreciate you tuning in, for sure. But like I said, I think it's another great tool in the tool belt of comic creators that they can utilize. Because, like I said, as a creator, you have to you have to utilize all the tools that are coming out, whether it be social media, whether it be multiverse, the app, utilizing it to get your content out there. There's just so many different avenues you're going to have, and such newer technology. You're going to have to figure out, how can I use and utilize this technology to the best of my ability to really benefit me. And again, as an independent comic creator, a cartoonist, or independent content creator, you have no choice but to kind of utilize these things, because you don't have the access that some of the bigger ones do, or some of the bigger players do, for sure.
Right.
We
One.
definitely, I want to make sure that you connect with Dion, and really, like I said, dive into it, really dig into it as a comic creator, as a independent indie comic creator because, like I said, I definitely feel like it's another viable way that will allow you to monetize the content that you are creating for sure. So make sure that you check out his website, Raster.io, the mul- the multiverse.cloud, so you can find out more information. Connect with Dion on Facebook at RMverse, also on Twitter as well. Connect with him on LinkedIn. I highly suggest that you reach out really to find out more about the platform and what it can do to help not just the comic that you may be working on, but all the content that you created and maybe have left, like Dion has said, on the table and didn't think about trying to monetize in some kind of way. Because somebody might, a character that you created that, you just came up with and created, somebody may have a use for it and may have an idea for it that, you just ordinarily wouldn't have been able to find or connect with for sure.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Again, I hope everybody, this has been such a great and interesting show for sure. Definitely looking forward to having you back on, Dion, when the app is really in full steam. So we can, and looking forward to not only, I'm assuming it's going to be available on both Apple, on all the platforms, on all the
Yes.
uh, iOSs out there, so that
Yes.
people can take advantage of. Because, like you said, I think,
Excuse me.
uh, you know, you had mentioned earlier in the show, it really is in third world countries and countries outside of the U.S. The mobile industry really is a big. It's really
Yeah.
is a big industry. I mean, it's
Mobile is
big
huge.
here, but you
Yes.
can just imagine what it is in countries where there are 3, 4, 5, 6 million people, way larger than the U.S. that, and we're
Wow.
all connected. It seems like.
Yep. Yep.
So there is such a huge opportunity to touch and reach people for sure.
Mhm. Definitely.
Again, Dion, I appreciate you so much for one, being a part of the Color of Motion family. Always sharing what you've got going on and everything that you're doing. So looking forward to having you back on the show. Like I said,
We'll do it
and
again.
really showing the app and the platform in full steam. But I can't thank you enough, Dion, for really
Thank you.
gracing us with your presence.
Thank you, Don.
If you could, uh, please, like I said I wasn't going to try and strain your voice. If anybody, he's been dealing with some allergies, and as you can tell,
Yes.
a little cold there. So I don't want to run them
Yes.
too long. But if you could hang out in the green room for a second while I close out
Sure.
the show, that way I can thank you again properly.
Absolutely.
I would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Everybody, again, all his information is going to be on the show notes on the YouTube channel. So make sure that you jump on over there, check out this episode, check out his links to where you can connect with him, maybe catch some other great episodes for sure. But make sure that you want to check out all the information that's going to be in the show notes. And so, everybody, please help me thank again my very special guest and friend, Mr. Dion.
Thank you.
Again, hang out in the green room while I close this out. Everybody, it's been a good show. We thank you.
Absolutely.
Guys, it's been A great show, always interesting, and like I said, I found it very fascinating. Like I said, I love. Of course, I'm a content creator, so I love the. I don't know. I love the creator and the content creator, but I also love the technical side and the technology that kind of fuels and pushes out our content, and definitely feel like it's something that you need to know, and that is a very integral part of just pushing and getting your content out there for sure. I hope everybody found some value in this show. I know I have, and I know you will too, once you sit down and really dive into and listen to all that was said. Again, make sure that you jump on over to the YouTube channel. Again, I always highly encourage people, go on over youtube.com/Don Terrell. Give a thumbs up to this video, subscribe, hit the bell notification, throw in a comment because that definitely helps out the algorithm for sure. Make sure, like I said, if you haven't already, become a part of our it's not new anymore and it's rapidly growing for sure, but make sure you become a part of the Facebook community, facebook.com/groups/the color of motion. I definitely want you to be a part of our community and get engaged because that's how we grow, that's how we learn, and that's how we connect for sure, and definitely want to connect with you. And speaking of connecting, make sure that you connect with me again on all my social channels there. I want to hear from you. Let me know what you think. And like I said, I want to have you be a part of our growing Color of Motion family for sure. Like I said, this has been a great show for sure. Make sure that you tune in next week because it's going to be another great episode. And I'm looking forward to that. Super, super excited to be sitting down with my next guest, Salome Sanu, freelance illustrator and character designer. Does some great work, and we're going to have a lot of fun sitting down talking with him for sure. So excited, excited, excited about that. And with that, it would come to another great end of the show. I'm having so much fun with the show. And can you believe we are almost on Halloween? Man, this year is just flying by so fast. Look in the next upcoming weeks to our very special 1 year anniversary show. It's going to be a great one for sure. Got a lot of fun things planned and a very special guest. So I'm excited about having them on the show for sure. It's been one hell of a ride so far and looking forward to an even better ride moving forward. With that, I am going to close out this episode. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I know I enjoyed it, and I look to see you next week. Have a great weekend. Have a productive week, and I will see you same bat time, same bat channel. Cheers, everybody.